Alright, so I'm playing City of Villains, and these are my binary brothers, starting with 0B1 here. And he actually used to have the binary name for one, but when I switched servers, somebody already had the name, so I had to do the short version, which is 0B1. But anyway, so what he is he is a tank, or I'm sorry, a brute on the villain side, which is basically your tank. He plays as a tank. A little bit different on the power set setup, but this is kind of a basic setup for my newer level 50s. I kind of call it my yellow build, where I use a lot of the uncommon recipes to get the bonuses. He's on his way to being built, but he's definitely good enough to take on heroes and archvillains along with support, even though he doesn't have incarnate here. And his support is his brother, who is 0B10, or number 2, the second born. And again, they've got a really cool backstory. A lot of people like it, and I've got it typed up somewhere. The game doesn't let you have more than 1,000 characters, or just barely over 1,000, but for their backstories. But I have backstories on all my characters. Anyway, this guy is a beam rifle and kinetics, and I love this combination. He's got debuffs built into his heals and all that good stuff. So he also has basically a yellow build as well. He has a lot of rares to add to it. He's pretty much built except for doing the incarnate and whatnot. I'm liking what he's got. He is kind of an end hog, but aside from that, I guess we'll move on to what the actual mission is, which is the mission Vindication, and you get it through the Contact Abyss. I'm doing it through Ouroboros, but she's in Granville. Alright, so the first Vindicator I ran into in their base is Luminary, who is the blaster for range damage and uses a lot of energy in smashing. Luminary's typically not too hard to take down. When she does hit in with some of her harder hits, they do hit very hard. Energy resistance is probably your best bet against Luminary, and luckily I've got quite a good amount of energy resistance because of 0B10. The kinetics has an ability that boosts my energy and smashing damage resistance. So this fight ended up taking about 5 minutes, which is not too bad, which is actually pretty good for a hero fight, hero archvillain class fight. So obviously I'm not going to go through the entire fight scene here. What I'm going to do is just do a couple of little highlights here, and just so you can kind of see what the abilities are and whatnot, and then I'm going to jump to the end of the fight on the actual takedown. So and now we jump to the end, and not too tough. Like I said, I don't think anybody got below 3/4 health really. So pretty much an easy fight, and on to the next. So the second Vindicator is Valkyrie, and she happened to be in the same room. I was lucky I didn't accidentally grab her in the middle of that fight. But Valkyrie is a scrapper, which is a very high damage, your melee DPS in the game. And players who play scrappers don't typically, they're not as tanky, but they are very good in a fight. So Valkyrie uses, I think, like broadsword and regeneration, and so basically her health regenerates pretty quick, and she's got a lot of smashing and lethal damage, and she can be pretty tough, but she's not that tough. Again, with 0B10's kinetic abilities, when he heals, he's actually slowing her regeneration down quite a bit, as well as his other debuffs, which take away from her damage, and recharge rates and all that stuff. So this fight went pretty smooth. There is one thing though that does kind of make her tough or make the fight last long, and it's the reason why a lot of people dread fighting her. And it's because of the ability that she has called Moment of Glory, which is the tier 9 for regeneration. So basically, as we jump here to the end of the fight, when she goes down, you basically have the ability to self-resurrect or res yourself, as you can see here. And when you hit this power, you have like this crazy amount of damage resistance and most importantly defense. So she's really hard to hit, and when you hit her, you do very little damage. So what ended up happening is this fight ends up taking about 10 minutes. So obviously we're not going to wait that long, but we're going to jump right to the end, and her Moment of Glory finally burned off, and this allowed me to finish her off, and that was the end of it. So 2 down and 2 to go. Alright, so next up is Miss Liberty, and she was in another room in the building here, very close, and she is the leader of the Vindicators, and she's a scrapper as well, and she uses martial arts and invulnerability. So she's pretty tanky. She does a lot of smashing damage. She hits really hard, and she's typically not too tough to take down. Debuffs really hurt her quite a bit. She doesn't have a very good resistance to debuffs. So if you can get through her initial alphas and whatnot, you can do pretty well against her. Now, the buddies that she's got with her here, the two, you see the little white circles going off, those are sonic, like resonators or something. Well, they're debuffing the crap out of me, and causing my resistances to go down. So when she hits me pretty darn hard. So luckily my support, Lvl50-51, my other character, he's able to keep the heals going and everything. And like I said, I'm dual boxing these two guys, so I end up running this guy out of endurance, and he's not able to do much. But I was concentrated mainly on my tank, or my brute. But so working 2 keyboards, it's really fun. It's pretty satisfying when you defeat a hero class in the game. So anyway, this fight ended up going pretty well. She took about just a little over 6 minutes to take down, and when she hits that tier 9, it's called unstoppable, and all of her resistances jump way up. And here her tier 9 was actually still running. I think maybe it just burned off at this point, and she went into her kind of stun or burnout, which allowed me to take her down pretty easily. So again, this was another fight that I was kind of expecting to dominate. Okay, so Minx is the last Vindicator that I found, and this is the fight that I always dread, is with this particular Vindicator, because she is nasty. She's accounted for more team wipes than anything, whether you're dual boxing or you got a full team. She can be taken down if you know what you're doing, but a lot of people think that she's a scrapper, and she's not. She's actually listed as a tanker, and she uses claws, which is a ton of lethal damage, and super reflexes, so she has really good defense as well. The debuffs really help with her as far as damage debuffs, but she's pretty resistant to other debuffs like endurance debuffs and regeneration debuffs and stuff. They don't seem to affect her as much, but she hits really hard, and you'll see here, you know, in a minute that she hits through a lot. She gets a lot of her hits through, so you've got to keep constant heals on with her. So I jumped about to the midway point of the fight, and she likes to run around a lot. You got to chase her down and whatnot. Luckily, she didn't run around too far, but when she starts taking a lot of debuffs and a lot of DOT, she likes to take off running. So she wasn't too bad. She took about 7 minutes to take down, which is about the second longest, and it's mainly because of her tier 9 power, which makes her almost impossible to hit. It's kind of like the moment of glory, only she doesn't have the resistances, but her defense is way up there. And here her tier 9 just dropped, and it allowed me to take her out, which this one went really well. I was pretty surprised for these two builds. And overall, the entire thing took me just a little over an hour and a half almost. But I had no deaths, and I win.